The land of Korra stretched wide under a burning red sky. Dust rose with every gust of wind, covering the ground in a haze that never settled. Mountains stood far away, their sharp edges black against the horizon. In the middle of this harsh world, a small group of human explorers stood near their landing craft. Their eyes followed the movement of a single figure approaching from the plains. The figure was massive. He wore heavy armor made of dark metal plates, each piece shining with marks of battle. A long blade rested on his back, the handle carved with strange symbols. His steps were slow, but each one carried a weight that made the ground tremble. This was Ru'un, a warrior of the Korathai, a people known for strength, battle, and pride. The humans had been warned about them. Stories said the Korathai were merciless to the weak. They respected only those who could prove strength in combat. Any sign of fear would invite contempt. The explorers knew this, and so when Ru'un came close, none of them moved. They held their breath, afraid of showing anything that could be taken as weakness. Aaron stood among them. He was young, barely taller than the shoulder of the alien before him. His clothing was simple, nothing like the shining armor of the warrior. He had no weapon, only a pack strapped to his back. His heart beat fast, but he felt something rise inside him. It was not anger, and it was not pride. It was the memory of what his grandfather once told him back on Earth. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is stepping forward even when fear grips you. Ru'un stopped a short distance away. His yellow eyes scanned the group, sharp as blades. His voice was deep when he spoke. Who leads you? His words were not shouted, yet they carried enough power to echo across the plain. The humans looked at one another, hoping someone else would answer. Aaron looked at Ru'un and saw more than a towering figure. He saw the challenge in the alien's stance, the demand for proof. Before he realized it, his feet were moving. He stepped forward, breaking the line of frozen explorers. His hand brushed against the dust-filled air, and he stood alone before the warrior. Gasps escaped from the others, but Aaron did not stop. He did not have a plan. His body moved on its own, driven by instinct. He looked up at Ru'un, meeting his eyes without lowering his head. The silence grew heavy, pressing against everyone. Then something unexpected happened. Ru'un, the towering warrior who had seen countless battles, bent one knee to the ground. His armor clashed softly as he lowered himself. The movement was slow but steady, a gesture of respect that none of the humans understood. The alien tilted his head slightly and spoke again. This time his words were not a demand. They were a request. Show me. The other humans could not believe what they saw. This warrior, who was supposed to see them as fragile and weak, had bowed to Aaron. None of them had ever heard of a Korathai kneeling to an outsider. Aaron did not know what to say. His throat felt dry, and his hands trembled at his sides. Yet something inside told him not to step back. If he retreated now, everything would be lost. He remembered again his grandfather's voice in his memory. Do not fear what is larger than you. Even the strongest can bow when they see truth in another. Ru'un's eyes did not waver. He watched the human closely, waiting for something. The words "show me" carried more weight than a simple request. They carried the expectation of a trial. Aaron's companions whispered behind him. Some wanted to call him back, afraid of what might come. Others could only stare, unable to believe the sight before them. The young man stood firm. He did not know what the alien warrior wanted him to show. He did not know why his single step forward had caused such a reaction. But he knew one thing. Turning back was no longer possible. A path had opened, and only he could walk it. The wind blew harder across the plain, pulling at Aaron's clothes. Dust swirled around him and the kneeling warrior. The air itself seemed to wait. In that moment, two very different worlds met, not in battle but in recognition. Ruin's voice came again, quieter now. Among my people, strength is shown in many ways. You moved without fear. That is strength. Yet I must see more. I must see what makes your kind survive among stars. Aaron felt the weight of those words. He was no soldier. He was not a leader. He was simply a young man standing on a strange world. But for reasons he could not yet understand, this warrior saw something in him that no one else did. The silence stretched once more. Aaron straightened his back and raised his head higher. He did not bow, and he did not run. His heart still pounded, but his courage held him steady. The air over Koro was still, heavy with dust and silence. Aaron stood before Ruin, the alien warrior who had bent one knee to him. The other explorers remained behind, too afraid to speak or move. They watched with wide eyes, unsure of what would happen next. None of them had expected the warrior to kneel, and none of them understood why he had spoken the words "show me." Ruin rose slowly from the ground. His armor rattled as he stood to his full height. He reached behind his back and pulled free the long blade he carried. The metal sang as it left the sheath. Sunlight reflected off the edge, bright and sharp. Aaron swallowed hard, feeling his chest tighten. He had no weapon, no armor, and no training. You stepped forward when the others froze, Ruin said in his deep voice. That is the sign of one who does not yield to fear. But among my people, words and small gestures are not enough. To be honored, one must prove strength with action. You must face me in a test. The explorers gasped, and one of them shouted, "He cannot fight you. He is only human." Ruin turned his gaze toward the group. His yellow eyes glowed faintly under the red sky. If he is only human, then let him stand and fall. If he is more, then let him rise. No warrior hides behind the voices of others. Aaron felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. His legs wanted to step back, but something deeper held him in place. He remembered what his grandfather used to tell him back on Earth. Bravery is not about winning. Bravery is about facing what you fear and standing your ground. He took a slow breath and stepped closer to the warrior. "I will face the test," he said. His voice shook at first, but he forced it to grow steady. Ruin gave a slight nod. He turned and marked a circle on the ground with the tip of his blade. Dust scattered as the circle closed. "Here is the place," the warrior said. "You will stand against me. I will not strike to kill. But I will not hold back my strength. Show me what you are." The circle of dust became the arena. Aaron walked into it, his hands empty, his heart racing. He looked at Ruin, who stood like a mountain of steel. There was no chance of winning if strength was the measure. Yet Aaron did not allow himself to think of failure. He told himself to trust his body, to trust the moment. The warrior raised his blade. The edge gleamed, and the ground seemed to hum with its weight. "Begin," Ruin said. Aaron froze for a second, unsure what to do. Then the warrior moved. Ruin's charge was swift, faster than anyone of his size should be. The ground shook under his steps. Aaron's mind screamed to run, but his body moved in another way. He stepped aside, not far, just enough to let the warrior pass. The blade cut through empty air where Aaron had been standing. Dust rose in a cloud. Aaron stumbled but did not fall. His hand brushed the alien's arm as Ruin stormed past, not with strength but with balance. The touch was small, but it shifted the warrior's movement. Ruin stumbled forward one step before turning with a roar. The warriors watching from a distance began to murmur. To them, it was not weakness they saw. It was precision. It was timing. Aaron's chest heaved as he looked at his hand, still tingling from the contact. He had not struck a blow, yet he had moved the warrior in a way none expected. Ruin faced him again, his eyes sharper now. Not strength, the warrior said. Something else. You moved without thinking. You trusted the moment. That is not chance. That is skill. Aaron shook his head. I am no fighter. I only move to stay alive. The warrior's lips curled into something like a smile. That is the heart of every fight. To live when others would fall. To see the opening when others see only fear. You carry more than you know. The circle of dust was quiet again. Aaron felt the weight of many eyes upon him. His companions looked at him with disbelief, while the Korathai warriors who stood behind Ruin whispered among themselves. The warrior lowered his blade and drove its tip into the ground. The sound rang through the plain like a bell. He looked down at Aaron and spoke with solemn respect. You are small, but your courage is not. You are untrained, but your movement holds truth. Among my people, strength takes many forms. Today you have shown one of them. But this test is not finished. There is more I must see. Aaron wiped the sweat from his brow. His legs shook, but he forced them to remain strong. He did not fully understand what he had done, but he could feel the weight of it. He had faced the charge of a giant and had not fallen. That alone was something no one could take from him. Ruin pulled his blade free and rested it on his shoulder. Tomorrow, he said, you will stand again. You will show me more. For now, you have given me reason to watch you. The warrior turned and left the circle, his heavy steps echoing in the dust. The other Korathai followed him, still whispering. The explorers hurried to Aaron's side, their faces filled with fear and questions. Why did you step forward? One of them asked. You could have been crushed. Aaron looked at the fading figure of Ruin and then at the circle of dust. I do not know, he admitted. I only knew I could not stay still. Something told me I had to move. The group fell silent. The sky above burned red, and the wind carried the sound of distant thunder. Aaron felt the world had shifted, as if his single step had opened a door to something far greater than he could imagine. The night on Koro was long and heavy. The sky glowed faintly with red clouds, and the stars above were dim, hidden behind dust. Aaron lay awake near the campfire while the other explorers slept. His body ached from the clash with Ruin, though he had barely touched the warrior. His mind replayed the moment again and again, the way his feet had moved, the way his hand had brushed the alien's arm. He had not planned it. His body had moved on its own, without thought. What troubled him most was the way the warrior had looked at him after the fight. Ruin had not seen weakness. He had seen something else, something that even Aaron could not explain. The next morning came with a harsh wind. The explorers gathered nervously near their landing craft, but Aaron felt a strange calm. He had already stepped forward once. There was no turning back now. Ruin appeared again, his armor gleaming under the dull light. This time he was not alone. A group of Korathai warriors followed him, each carrying weapons and shields. Their tall figures formed a circle around the clearing. They had come to witness the second test. Ruin looked at Aaron and spoke in his deep voice. Yesterday you showed me courage. Today you will show me more. The Korathai believe strength is the heart of honor. But you are not strong as we measure strength. So you must prove another path. Aaron nodded. His throat felt dry, but his voice did not waver when he answered. I will try. The warrior stepped into the circle once again. Dust swirled at his feet as he lifted his blade. This time, I will not hold my charge. You must face me with nothing but yourself. Do not fear what you cannot control. Show me how you survive. The circle grew silent. The other Korathai watched with narrow eyes. The explorers held their breath. Aaron stepped inside, his heart beating faster with every second. He had no weapon. He had no shield. All he had was the instinct that had saved him before. Ruin struck first. His blade cut through the air with the sound of thunder. Aaron moved, his body bending low, the blade passing inches above his head. He stumbled but caught himself, dust filling his lungs. The warrior turned quickly, his speed shocking for one so large. Aaron had no time to think. His body moved again, stepping aside, leaning into the motion. His hand reached out, brushing Ruin's arm once more. And then it happened. The warrior's own strength betrayed him. His charge met empty space, and his weight carried him forward. The lightest touch from Aaron shifted his balance just enough. Ruin stumbled, his heavy armor clashing loudly as he dropped to one knee. The ground shook beneath him. The Korathai warriors gasped. Their voices rose in sharp whispers. To them, what they had seen was impossible. No human could move a Korathai warrior. No human could unbalance one of their kind in open combat. Yet they had seen it with their own eyes. Aaron stood frozen, his chest heaving. He had not meant to strike. He had not meant to topple the giant. He had only tried to survive. Yet somehow, his survival had forced the warrior down. Ruin lifted his head slowly. His yellow eyes burned with intensity, but not with anger. Instead, there was respect. He stood, towering once again, and raised his blade high. The Korathai warriors fell silent at the gesture. This human, Ruin said, his voice echoing across the plain, is not strong as we know strength. Yet his movement is truth. His hand is small, yet it carries the power to turn the course of a battle. This is no accident. This is mastery born of instinct. Aaron shook his head, still catching his breath. I only moved because I had no choice. If I had thought, I would have failed. The warrior lowered his blade and looked at him closely. That is the lesson. The mind can hesitate, but the body can carry wisdom older than thought. You trusted that wisdom, and it carried you through. That is a strength greater than muscle. The other Korathai shifted uneasily. Some looked at Aaron with new respect. Others frowned, unwilling to accept that a small human could show them something they had never seen. Ruin turned toward them. Our people believe strength is measured by the arm and the blade. Yet here stands one who holds no blade and no armor, yet he has stood against me twice. He has not won by force. He has won by something greater. Shall we deny what our own eyes have seen? The warriors did not answer, but the silence was heavy. They could not deny what had happened. Aaron lowered his head for a moment, overwhelmed by the attention. He had never wanted to be the center of anything. He was just an explorer, a traveler among stars. Yet here, on this barren world, he was being asked to carry something he did not understand. Ruin stepped closer and placed the tip of his blade in the ground between them. You will train with me. I will see more of this human way. I will learn what gives you this power, and I will show it to my people. Do you accept this path? Aaron looked up, meeting the warrior's eyes. He did not know what training would mean. He did not know if he could survive it. But he remembered the feeling of stepping forward, the feeling of moving without fear. He nodded. I accept. The circle of Korathai broke, and the warriors left in silence, each carrying their own thoughts. The explorers hurried to Aaron, their voices filled with questions. Aaron had no answers for them. His mind was too full, his heart too heavy. That night, as the stars fought to shine through the dust-filled sky, Aaron sat by the fire again. He looked at his hands, small and scarred with dirt. They did not feel powerful. They did not feel strong. Yet they had done something no one else could. The days on Korra passed with a slow rhythm. The red sky never cleared, and the air always carried dust that stung the throat. Aaron spent his mornings and evenings in the training circle with Ruon, while the other explorers kept their distance. They did not understand what was happening, and most of them feared it. But Ruon had chosen Aaron, and when a Korathai warrior gave his word, there was no turning back. The training was unlike anything Aaron had imagined. Ruon did not hand him a blade or a shield. Instead, he made Aaron walk across the rough ground barefoot, learning to feel every stone and curve beneath his steps. He made him balance on narrow ledges, stand still in the harsh wind, and move quickly when dust blinded his eyes. It was not about strength or force. It was about awareness, about learning to see more than what was in front of him. You humans fight with your minds, Ruon said one morning as Aaron stumbled across the ledge. You do not carry the strength of our kind, but you carry a different gift. You read the world. You move with it. That is why you stood against me. Aaron wiped the sweat from his forehead and shook his head. I did not plan anything. My body just moved. I was only trying not to die. Ruon stopped and studied him with sharp eyes. That is what you do not see. Among my people, training begins with muscle. We swing blades until our arms break. But you moved without training. That is not weakness. That is truth born from survival. That is the meaning I seek. The words left Aaron unsettled. He had never thought of himself as anything special. He was just another traveler, just another human trying to find his place among the stars. Yet this giant of a warrior spoke to him as though his every step carried wisdom. By the third day, whispers spread across the Korathai settlement. More warriors came to watch. They stood at the edges of the circle, their eyes fixed on the strange human who trained without a weapon. Some muttered that it was foolishness. Others watched in silence, their pride hiding curiosity. That evening, a council of Korathai gathered in the great hall. The chamber was carved into the rock of a mountain, lit by flames that burned without smoke. Carvings of battles lined the walls, each one showing heroes with blades raised high. Aaron stood near the entrance, unsure if he even belonged there. Ruon stood beside him, tall and firm, his armor gleaming in the firelight. The council leader, an elder named Tuur, rose from his seat. His horns curved high above his head, and his eyes carried the weight of centuries. He looked first at Ruon, then at Aaron. We hear strange talk among our people. They say you bow to this human. They say you call him strong. Explain this to us, warrior. Ruon stepped forward, his voice deep and steady. I do not bow to strength of the arm. I bow to strength that lives in the spirit. This human stood before me when all others froze. He faced me with no weapon and still unbalanced my charge. Twice he moved in a way that no Korathai expected. This is not chance. This is wisdom in the body. The council chamber filled with murmurs. Some of the elders shook their heads, unwilling to believe. One of them stood and pointed at Aaron. He is small. He has no blade, no honor marks, no training. How can he hold wisdom greater than warriors who have fought all their lives? Ruin's eyes flashed. Because he is human. His kind do not fight as we do. They live by adapting. They learn faster than we can. Where we see only one path, they see many. This is why they survive among stars that would burn others to ash. Aaron felt his face grow hot as all eyes turned to him. He wanted to speak, but his words tangled. Finally, he forced himself to step forward. I am not a warrior. I do not know your ways. But I know this. On earth, where I was born, we were never the strongest. There were beasts larger than us, stronger than us, faster than us. But we learned to think. We learned to use what was around us. We survived not by power, but by finding another way. The hall grew quiet. Even the fire seemed to still. The elders studied him closely, their sharp eyes measuring every word. Tuur leaned forward on his staff. You say your people survived by learning, by adapting. You say this is your strength. If that is true, then show us. Prove it not with words, but with action. Ruin placed a hand on Aaron's shoulder. He already has. He stood against me. He unbalanced me with nothing but timing and instinct. That was not luck. That was his gift. Another elder rose, shaking his head. A stumble in the dust is no proof. If he wishes to claim wisdom, let him guide us in something greater. Let him face a trial not of one warrior, but of many. The council murmured in agreement. Aaron's chest tightened. He had barely survived facing Ruin. Now they were asking for more. Ruin turned to him, his voice low but firm. Do not fear this. The council does not understand yet, but they will. You will not face them with strength. You will face them with the gift of your people. Trust yourself. Aaron swallowed hard, unsure if he could believe it. But when he looked at the faces around him, he saw more than doubt. He saw curiosity. He saw a people standing on the edge of change, and somehow he had become the one to push them forward. That night, Aaron sat alone outside the hall, staring at the stars that glimmered faintly through the dust-filled sky. His thoughts churned like the restless wind. He did not want to be a leader. He did not want to carry the weight of proving humanity to an alien world. Yet the path was no longer his to refuse. He clenched his fists and whispered to himself. I will not run. Somewhere in the distance, the deep sound of drums echoed from the mountains. The trial was coming, and with it, the chance to show the hidden meaning of what it truly meant to be human. The next sunrise painted the red sky with darker shades of gold. The dust storms had calmed for a while, leaving the land quiet. Aaron woke early, his body stiff from the hard ground. He had not slept well. The weight of the council's words still pressed on his chest. They wanted proof, not in words but in action. A trial awaited him, and he had no clear idea what it would be. Ruin was already waiting near the training circle. His armor gleamed in the weak light, and his blade rested across his back. When Aaron approached, the warrior gave a nod. Today we continue. The council doubts, but doubt can become respect when truth is seen. You must show them more of what you carry. Aaron frowned. I do not know what else to show. I am not stronger than you. I am not faster. All I can do is move and think. Ruun's deep voice rumbled like distant thunder. Then that is what you must show. Strength is not the only path. Teach us the way of your kind. So the training shifted. Instead of facing Ruun in duels, Aaron began showing him the simple tricks of human survival. He gathered rocks from the ground and placed them in strange patterns. He tied scraps of rope to sticks to form tools. He showed how a small stone, if thrown with the right angle, could knock another object from a distance. The Korathai warriors who watched shook their heads at first, confused by the odd displays. But when Aaron explained, their doubt turned to thought. We do not always strike with strength, he said. We use the world around us. A rock may seem small, but it can change the outcome of a fight if placed or used at the right time. A tool may be simple, but it can save energy that would be lost in battle. Ruun tested each lesson with seriousness. He placed stones as Aaron showed him and saw how they could trip an enemy running too fast. He threw sticks tied with rope and saw how they could carry weight across gaps without stepping forward. With every new method, Ruun's respect deepened. You shape the world to fight for you, the warrior said after a long trial. Where we carry blades, you carry thought. Where we break walls, you find doors. This is why you live while others fall. The watching Korathai began to murmur again, but this time their voices carried less doubt and more curiosity. Some stepped forward to try Aaron's methods themselves. They laughed at first, awkward in their movements, but soon they began to see the value. When one warrior nearly tripped on a stone Aaron had placed as a test, the others grew silent. They realized how even a small idea could change the rhythm of battle. Days passed, and Aaron continued to guide them. He showed them how to use shadows to hide movement, how to climb to higher ground to see farther, and how to listen to the wind to sense change. These were simple things to him, habits from a human life of problem solving, but to the Korathai they were revelations. Ruun watched closely, his respect for Aaron growing with each passing day. One evening, after a long session, the warrior spoke with rare softness. You remind me of when I was young. I believed strength was all that mattered. But you show me another truth. I see now that honor is not only in the blade. It is also in the mind that guides it. Aaron looked down at his hands. I never thought of myself as a teacher. I am only showing what humans do to survive. Ruun shook his head. Do not diminish it. Survival is the greatest skill of all. To endure where others fall is proof of greatness. The bond between them grew. Ruun no longer looked at Aaron as a fragile outsider. He began to stand beside him as an equal, a partner in learning. The other Korathai noticed this change, and though many still carried pride, they could no longer dismiss the human. The explorers, too, saw the shift. They had once feared the giant warrior, but now they watched him listen to Aaron with patience. Some whispered that perhaps humanity truly had something rare, something worth more than raw power. One evening, the council gathered again in the great hall. This time, Aaron was brought forward not as a weak figure to be judged, but as one whose presence demanded attention. The elders studied him carefully. Tuur, the leader, leaned forward on his staff. We have heard the reports. You guide our warriors with tricks and tools. You show them paths where none exist. Tell us, human, do you believe these teachings can change the way of the Korathai? Aaron took a steady breath. His voice was calm but firm. I believe every people must use what they have. You are strong in ways we humans can never be. But strength alone is not enough. If you add thought to strength, you become more than warriors. You become something greater. The chamber filled with murmurs once more. The words were bold, but they carried weight. Ruin stepped forward and raised his blade high. I have trained with him. I have seen his ways. They are not tricks. They are wisdom. I say he has shown us more than we imagined. For the first time, some of the elders nodded. Respect was beginning to grow where only doubt had lived. That night, when Aaron returned to the campfire, he felt the change. The Korathai no longer looked at him as prey. They looked at him as someone who held something worth knowing. Ruin sat beside him, the firelight reflecting off his armor. You have begun to open their eyes, he said. But the path ahead is long. Respect is growing, but it will only last if you prove yourself in a greater trial. The time will come soon. Aaron looked at the stars faintly shining above the dust. He felt the weight of what was coming, but for the first time, he also felt hope. He was no longer alone. Respect was blooming, and with it came the chance to change everything. The days of training had begun to change the Korathai. What had started as doubt had turned into curiosity, and curiosity slowly became respect. Aaron felt it whenever the warriors looked at him. They no longer saw him as fragile. They watched him with serious eyes, listening to his words and testing his ideas. Ruin, always at his side, carried himself with pride when he stood next to the human. But change is never without challenge. One evening, as the sun dipped low behind the jagged mountains, a horn sounded across the valley. The deep tone rolled like thunder, shaking the ground beneath their feet. The Korathai warriors rose to their full height, their eyes narrowing. Ruin gripped the hilt of his blade, his voice steady. The rival clan has come. They bring war to us. Aaron's chest tightened. He had heard stories of the rival clan, the Varen, who lived beyond the far mountains. They were said to be fiercer and more ruthless than any other Korathai. For generations, their battles had scarred the land. Now they were coming here, and the settlement would face them. The council called the warriors into the great hall. Torches burned against the stone walls, throwing long shadows across the carvings of ancient battles. The air was heavy with tension. Tuur, the elder leader, spoke with a grave tone. The Varen have crossed the valley. They march toward us, and they will not stop. We must meet them in battle. Prepare yourselves. The warriors pounded their fists against their chests in a vow of strength. Aaron stood quietly beside Ruin, feeling the weight of what was to come. He knew this battle would not be like the tests in the training circle. This was not about showing tricks or proving courage. This was survival. That night, Ruin sat with Aaron by the fire. His armor gleamed red in the glow. The Varen will attack at dawn, he said. Our people will fight as we always have. Blade against blade, shield against shield. But their numbers are greater. If we fight them in the open, we may not survive. Aaron thought hard, his mind racing. He looked at the cliffs that rose beyond the valley, the shadows that stretched long under the dim light. He listened to the wind that carried across the plains. Slowly, an idea formed. You said before that strength is not enough. You have strength, but they expect you to use it the same way as always. What if we fight differently? Ruin raised a brow. Differently, yes, Aaron said, his voice firm. Do not meet them head-on in the open. Use the land. Let the cliffs and shadows fight with you. Guide them where you want them, not where they want to go. Ruin's eyes narrowed, but then he nodded slowly. This is the human way. To shape the battle instead of charging blindly. By dawn, the warriors were ready. The Varen came with fierce cries, their banners black against the rising suns. They moved like a storm, blades raised high, their armor clashing in rhythm. They expected the defenders to stand in the valley and meet them in open combat. But the Korathai settlement was empty. The enemy advanced with confusion, their leaders shouting commands. Then the trap was sprung. From the cliffs above, stones rolled down, crashing into their ranks. The warriors hidden in shadows struck from the sides, their attacks fast and sharp. Echoes filled the canyon, making the enemy believe they were surrounded by far greater numbers. Aaron moved among them, guiding the warriors with signals. He pointed to weak ground where the enemy stumbled, to narrow paths where their numbers could not fit. He had no blade, but his eyes saw the battle in ways the others could not. The Varen roared in anger, trying to push forward, but every step met resistance. The cliffs broke their lines, the shadows hid their foes, and their own strength turned against them. The battle stretched long, but slowly the tide shifted. The defenders began to push the invaders back. Ruin fought at the front, his blade a storm of steel. Yet even he followed Aaron's signals, striking when the enemy was unbalanced, retreating when the ground favored defense. For the first time in their history, the Korathai fought not just with strength, but with strategy. When the sun stood high above, the Varen broke. Their lines scattered, their shouts turning into cries of retreat. The defenders stood victorious, their armor stained with dust and sweat but their spirits unbroken. The valley was theirs. As the warriors gathered, their voices rose in a chant of victory. But when their eyes turned toward Aaron, the chant grew louder. They raised their blades, not only for Ruin, but for the human who had guided them. Tuur, the elder, stepped forward. His voice carried across the valley. This day could have ended in death. But we live. We live because this human saw paths we did not. He guided us with wisdom, not with strength, and his wisdom saved us. Let all here remember this. Ruin placed his blade in the ground and knelt once more before Aaron. The warriors followed, one by one, until the valley was filled with towering figures kneeling in respect. Aaron stood in the center, overwhelmed, his heart pounding. He had not fought with a blade. He had not struck down enemies with his own hands. Yet he had helped them win. The sound of the chant echoed through the mountains. Aaron raised his head and met the gaze of the warriors around him. He did not feel small anymore. He felt the weight of their respect, a respect earned not by force but by thought. The greater trial had come, and humanity had proven itself. The valley lay quiet after the battle. The smoke of burned banners drifted into the sky, and the sound of retreat still echoed faintly in the distance. Where once there had been fear of defeat, now there was pride. The Korathai stood tall, their armor dented and marked, their blades scratched, but their spirits unbroken. They had faced the Varen and had not only survived but triumphed. At the heart of this victory stood Aaron. The human did not raise a blade, yet he had guided giants. He walked among the warriors now, their towering figures parting as he passed. Some touched their fists to their chests in respect. Others bowed their heads briefly. For the first time, he was not an outsider. He was one of them. Ruin stayed close by his side. The warrior's steps were heavy but steady, his gaze filled with pride. You see it now, Ruin said softly. They no longer doubt. They look at you with honor. Aaron's voice was quiet. I did not think it would end like this. I only wanted to survive when I first came here. I did not imagine I would stand with warriors and be called one of them. Ruin gave a small nod. Greatness often begins with survival. But you gave more than survival. You gave us a way to fight with more than our blades. That gift will not be forgotten. That night, the council called for a gathering. The fires in the great hall burned bright, casting long shadows across the stone walls. Every warrior who had fought stood within the circle, their voices hushed in respect. Tuur, the elder, rose with the help of his staff. His voice was steady and strong despite his age. Korathai, he said, his words carrying through the chamber, today we face death, and today we live. Not only because of our strength, but because of wisdom given by one who is not of our kind. This human saw paths we did not, and by following them, we gained victory. For this, he deserves honor among us. A murmur ran through the chamber. Warriors nodded, their eyes fixed on Aaron. Some pounded their chests in agreement. Then, to Aaron's surprise, Tuur turned to him and said, "Step forward, human." Aaron walked slowly into the center of the hall, the eyes of giants heavy upon him. His heart pounded, but he kept his back straight. Tuur raised his staff high. "We offer you the bow of honor. The gesture we give only to those who shape the fate of our people. Will you accept it?" Aaron felt his breath catch. He glanced at Ruun, who gave him a firm nod. Slowly, Aaron bent to one knee, placing his hand to the ground. At once, the entire hall thundered as every Korathai dropped to one knee in unison. The sound shook the stone walls. Aaron's chest tightened as he realized the weight of what had happened. A human, small among giants, had earned their final bow. When the sound faded, Tuur spoke again. "From this day, you are not only human. You are Korathai in spirit. You are teacher and ally. Your people may be small, but your gift is great. We will carry this gift into the future." The hall erupted with cheers. The warriors raised their blades high, their voices echoing like rolling thunder. Aaron stood, his face lit by firelight, his heart heavy with emotion. He had been alone, a stranger among giants, yet now he stood as one of them. In the days that followed, the settlement rebuilt what had been broken. The warriors trained not only with blades, but also with the lessons Aaron had taught them. They learned to see the land as an ally, to think before striking, to shape the flow of battle. Ruun stood at the front of this change, guiding them with the same pride he once carried into duels. Aaron often walked the cliffs at dawn, looking out at the vast world beyond. The dust storm still rolled across the horizon, and danger still lived in the shadows of the mountains, but he no longer felt fear. He had found strength not in his own hands, but in the bond between himself and those who had once doubted him. One morning, as the suns rose high, Ruun joined him on the cliffs. The warrior carried no blade, only a quiet smile. "The time will come when you must choose," Ruun said. "Will you return to your own people, or will you stay here among us?" Aaron looked out at the endless horizon. "I do not know yet. My heart pulls both ways. But no matter where I go, a part of me will always remain here. With you. With them." Ruun placed a heavy hand on his shoulder. "Wherever you go, the Korathai will remember you. You have given us more than victory. You have given us a path. And paths do not vanish. They remain, guiding even when the one who made them has walked on." They stood together in silence, watching the light spread across the valley. The wind carried the faint sound of warriors training in the distance. Aaron smiled faintly, knowing that what he had shared would outlive him. He had moved without thinking once, and that moment had begun a story he never expected. A warrior had dropped to one knee and asked him to show more. Aaron had shown what it meant to be human, and in doing so, he had proven that humanity's strength was not in muscle or armor, but in the mind and spirit. The Korathai would never forget. And neither would he,